this morning, depending on where you're at in the time zone. So I'm actually in Central Time Zone right now. Usually I'm in my home office, which is in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. But this time I am in Iowa City, Iowa. I flew in on Sunday and have been working with a school, Regina Catholic School here in the city, and we'll be going home tomorrow. So great to be here with you all this afternoon or this morning to be able to talk about really, I think, a very important topic of how do you market your school during these troubled times, and especially if you've been going through a decline, how do you turn around that enrollment decline? So that's going to be our focus during our time together today. Just to give you a little perspective of who I am, my background has been in education my entire life, 25 years, 12 years at a university in Michigan where I was the executive director of enrollment management and also responsible for marketing. Then became the head of school at Northside Christian School in St. Petersburg, Florida, school of about 1,000 students, before making the transition to work in the consulting world to help schools like yours all across the country. And you see the Michigan State banner on there. That's where I received my Ph.D. program from them. And so I'm a Spartan, but I'm also a Wolverine because I like to root for their football teams and basketball teams. You can see some photos of my family. I'm a family guy. And you can see my two boys on the top. That's Caleb. He's a ninth grader this year, and that's a trip that we went on to Key West. My youngest son, Benjamin, we're at a Tampa Bay Bucks football game. I was supporting the home team, which hasn't done very well, and my son was supporting the 49ers at the game that we went to see. And then you see the photo of my family, my wife Janine and my two boys, and we're at Disney, which is where we often find ourselves. Being in Florida, we have the benefit of annual passes, and we can go over there, and you see my Griswold family Christmas shirt. We were all decked out in our Christmas shirts for the holidays at their Festival of Lights at Hollywood Studios. I love Starbucks coffee. In fact, I would love to have one right now. If we were in a live audience, I'd ask someone to go get one for me, but realizing that you can't do that, I'll have to settle for my Mountain Dew that I got out of the machine from my hotel room. And I work with schools all across the country. How I describe myself, it's very much like a coach. So you might go to the gym, like you see this photo here, and you might try to work on the different machines and do the exercises to achieve the results that you're after. Sometimes you need to hire a personal trainer to come alongside of you to show you what works, to provide some accountability and direction. And that's essentially what I do with schools. I provide direction, accountability, coaching, training along the way. You may be familiar with my blog that I write off my website that you can check out and subscribe to. I also have an ebook on 12 strategies to keep your families enrolled and grow your school. But we want to talk about what can we do in our schools to be able to experience growth, especially if you've been in a situation where you've had some declining in enrollment. So as I look at school growth, there's a lot of factors that affect the growth potential of a school. And you see this on your screen. So you can go around the circle here and you can think about all of these different aspects. For example, I think the leadership of a school plays a pivotal role in whether or not the school can grow and thrive. Because it's that leadership that's creating and casting the vision, that's providing the strategic direction for the school, that's working to ensure that we provide the quality school experience. I mean, if you don't have a school that's offering a quality program, it's going to be difficult to experience growth. So that's a foundational point in any school. Your faculty and staff play a key role. When the teacher goes into their classroom and closes that classroom door, what they do with their students greatly shapes the effectiveness of your school and your parent satisfaction. So you look at those as being key areas that affect whether a school can grow. Your reputation in the community. So what has happened in the past that people may be saying or what they may be aware of when they're thinking of a school the reputation certainly can affect that. The location. So if you're located in Iowa City, where I'm at, working with this school, there's going to be certain parameters in dealing with the local demographics. We're in a university town, and we're not in a major metropolitan city like Boston or Atlanta or some of those other types of markets. So it's going to be different. The price. So how you decide to price yourself as a school, and then how do you award financial aid? Those can be factors that can influence your growth, your competition. As you look around in your community, the strength of public schools, your other independent school competitors, maybe there's charter schools. And so there's a lot of competition that families have the ability to choose from what may be the best education for their child. And that is plays a huge effect on the enrollment school growth of your situation there. And you look at the last one, the enrollment and marketing plan. So that's where we have the control over, to be able to implement specific strategies that can affect our overall enrollment in our schools. And I often find that schools don't have a plan. Now, all of us would like to be in this situation of where I ran into Best Buy. This is a couple years ago now in St. Petersburg, Florida. This was 6 days before Thanksgiving, and I shared this in my retention webinar that I did last year, but it's relevant here because we'd all like to be in the situation where we announce re-enrollment or open enrollment at our school where we have them lining up on our sidewalks. But typically that's not the case. Unless you're in a situation where you have a very high demand school, limited seats, and you are creating that sense of urgency and you have waiting lists. But most schools, as I travel and see the country, aren't in this situation where like they're lining up 6 days before Black Friday to experience the deals. So as I look at the school market today, certainly I see some economic uncertainty, and that's tied with the recession that our country has been experiencing, and that has created some instability. There have been some schools that have actually grown during this time, others that have remained stagnant or flat, and some that have experienced decline all the way to the point of actually closing. So we certainly don't want that to happen, in your school, and that's why we're focusing on this topic today. But there's a lot of other issues as we look at, the sense of parent entitlement today, and that they have choices. And we were just talking about that this morning, about how parents are giving, their kids the ability to be able to choose whether or not they continue in their school or go to another school. So, that has changed. But there also is that strong demand for strong schools. So if you have a history and pattern of providing an excellent education, you've been around for a while, you have that academic reputation and overall quality reputation as a school, there is certainly that strong demand for schools like that. But as I see it as well, there's a desire for growth. I mean, as we look at all of our schools, we're tied to enrollment driving our revenue and the operational budget at our schools. But as I look at some of the marketing and enrollment observations, I see a lot of schools that have limited resources. We just aren't committing enough to the enrollment and marketing effort that we need to in order to see the success. Or we're kind of taking this shotgun approach. I'm going to try this, and I think it's going to be the answer. Maybe it's going to put my money into a direct mail campaign. It's an idea that came from a board member, and they think it's going to work, and so I'm going to take my limited dollars and put it there and hope that that's going to be the answer to our enrollment decline. And it isn't. We need a comprehensive plan and approach, and that's often where I see schools are short-sighted with not having an actual written plan. But I am seeing this shift from outbound to inbound marketing strategies. So inbound is the focus in on the web, so website, social media, etc. And what I talk a lot about, word-of-mouth marketing, there certainly is an interest in that area, and we're going to talk about that during our time together today. And the bottom line, from what I see in terms of the marketing effort of schools, we just don't tell our story very well. We have great stories in our parents, students, alumni, and faculty that we could be telling and sharing all the time, but we don't do that. We don't convey, their love for our schools, which can be a catalyst in our marketing effort. So as I look at some strategies for success and how we can grow our schools, there's 13 that I want to talk about this afternoon. And so in some ways we have just barely enough time to scratch the surface on each of these areas, because all of these could be their own webinar. You could probably spend an hour on each, but I want to just give you the broad strokes as to how these strategies can be used. And I'd like to start with the number one, leadership matters, because I do believe that. It goes back to what Bennis and Nanis say in their classic book, Leaders, that leadership is the pivotal force behind successful organizations. The same is true in schools, so we could change this around. Leadership is the pivotal force behind successful schools. And I see this all the time in my work with schools. It goes back to who's in charge, who's providing the vision, the direction for the school. Are they willing to take risks so that we can see the potential rewards of increased enrollment? Maybe we have to invest in a position or add some additional resources to do some things. But that leader is the one, or the leaders of the school are the one who's driving this overall effort for us. So I believe enrollment rises or falls on leadership. So I started working with a school in Charlotte, North Carolina 2 years ago. This is Northside Christian Academy. They're a church-related school. They had declined from 850 students down to 375 in about a 10-year period. Part of the reason for that significant decline was changes in leadership at the church and poor leadership at the school. And so as I began working with them, we actually worked on implementing all these strategies that we're talking about today. And throughout these 2 years, they've experienced steady growth. They're now up to around 500 students. So they've grown from 385 to 500, been able to turn around this enrollment decline. So I believe that leadership and what they are promoting and leading as the vision of the school is going to be tied to the potential success that you can have in the enrollment effort. One of the resources that I often go to is KOUZES and POSNER's book, The Leadership Challenge, where they talk about 5 leadership practices of exemplary leaders based upon their experience and research in the business and non-for-profit world. And one of those areas is inspiring a shared vision, and that's what a leader really needs to be about, is inspiring the people to believe that they can get to where they want to be, but then providing that path of how to get there and actually working towards the implementation of it. I like this quote here at the end, vision without implementation is hallucination. And I think that's actually credited towards to Thomas Edison, if I'm not mistaken. But vision without implementation is hallucination. So we can have this grand vision of where we want to see our school. It could be a nice document on paper, but we've got to be moving toward implementation. Otherwise, we're deceiving our people. So I think a key strategy for growing a school during these difficult times is with the leadership of the school. Number 2, to focus in on parent satisfaction. So the reality is that it's going to be the experience of the parents and their children at your school that's going to drive the success of your enrollment and marketing effort, because that translates into word of mouth. So if they have a poor experience in your school, then they're going to talk negatively about your school and the community, and we certainly don't want that. So often when I start working with a school, like I'm doing here at Regina Catholic Schools, I will conduct research. So I'll do focus groups and surveys so that I can measure parent satisfaction, I can see where they're at, and that helps to guide me into what I have to build off of. So if we have problems within the school that we need to address, those are things that I bring to the attention of the leadership of the school, because we may have to improve a math program. I just heard this recently in work in a school out in Washington State, where there was problems with the math program and the teacher connected with the program in the upper school. So that got the attention of the leadership of the school, So now they're working on that particular issue because it does translate into the parent satisfaction of the school. And I'm a huge believer in having a feedback loop for your parents. So at minimal, I think you need an annual survey that you're doing with your parents to measure this parent satisfaction. And then you're able to benchmark, from year to year how you're doing and looking for trends and patterns and seeing how you're improving. And as a result of that, you can develop an action plan. And I'm a huge believer in communicating that back to the parents and key stakeholders at the school. So we need that feedback loop. Sometimes it's important for schools to bring in someone like myself or a Mike Connor or another consulting group out there to come in and do the listening type of research to provide that guidance along the way. Number 3, I think it's critical for us to develop and communicate our brand. So as we look at branding from a business point of view, it's a way to differentiate our products from, as this quote says, from all other cattle out on the range. So it's kind of like this ranching illustration. Say you're driving down the road and you see this cattle farm and you see all these cows. And all of a sudden you see this purple cow. You're going to stop and do a double take, triple take, pull over your car, and you're going to pull out your iPhone. You're going to take a photo of this cow because it's totally different than any other cow that you see out on the cattle range. And that's the point, is we want to differentiate ourselves, to be different from our competition, to stand out, to stand apart. So, for example, at the school I'm at here in Iowa City, Regina Catholic Schools, they're clearly offering a Catholic education. So that's a way that they can differentiate themselves in the marketplace from the other public schools, and they can stand apart, that they're integrating faith into their overall experience and the values that support that faith-based perspective, because you want to stand out, especially in a crowded marketplace. And I just went past Seth Godin's book, The Purple Cow, which talks about that aspect of standing out, because the brand on the outside is only going to be strong as the brand on the inside of the school. So we want to make sure that what we're conveying and communicating is clearly an accurate picture of who we are. So we need to have a visually compelling brand. Often when I go into a school, if they haven't done work on this, they might be using 3, 4, or more logos. One school I started working with a few years ago I counted 7 different logos. And that just diminishes the overall brand of the school. So we want to have a focus on a clear identity, identifying what that logo is, so it's consistently communicated to our constituency, in the form of a logo, taglines, consistent colors, and messaging along the way. And I think that's where it's important to think about too, in terms of the messaging side of things, to think about this question: what do we want our people to talk about? So if there's 5 key areas of our school that we want to be able to focus in on, and we want everyone to be aware of in our school, first to identify them, and then to be able to communicate them, and to do that in story format so that we can tell stories wrapped around how we're actually doing this at our schools. So this is a great way, or a great assignment for you all to think about, what do we want our people to talk about? And then make it our effort within our marketing effort in our schools to be able to proactively and intentionally talk about those topics. Number 4, set goals and analyze the enrollment results. So if you have a declining enrollment in your school, it's important to first do an assessment to understand what's been happening along the way. Why have we been experiencing the decline? Is it because we haven't been able to bring in as many new students as we have in the past, or maybe we've been losing students in retention? Maybe it's between the 8th and 9th grade years or other key transition grades. So we at least assess where we're at and understand what's been happening, and then we need to set goals for us to move forward. So if we don't have a specific mark or goal that we're striving towards, it's going to be difficult to know whether we've reached that or not. And I'm talking about a different goal than, what the finance people, create as they work through and put together their budgets. Because I think as enrollment managers and admissions directors, we need to be able to set goals that are going to be realistic for us and also challenging, so that we can achieve those. And certainly you would do that alongside of your head of school. But looking at total enrollment, your retention goals, and your admissions goals, looking at every aspect of your admissions funnel to know how many inquiries it's going to take to generate the number of applications and the number of new students that you're after. It's kind of a common sales model that we need to have in place. This is an example of an enrollment goal worksheet that I worked through at Lakeland Christian School. They're a school that I started working with a couple years ago in Lakeland, Florida. They had declined from 1,100 students down to 985. So that got the attention of their head of school and their leadership team, and they wanted to turn it around. Ironically, they didn't have an enrollment admissions department. So that's one of the things that I started working with them on, is to create that department. They had different people doing the tasks of admissions, but they didn't have a person or department leading the charge in that effort. So we actually went through the process of setting up goals, and you can see from this worksheet what we did is we looked at the current enrollment, what our capacity is for the school. We looked at different scenarios. So they had a pretty high retention rate. I think it was around 88, 90, 89%. So we looked at the potential of what it would take if we increased that. What would that translate into our overall enrollment? So we developed a goal of 91% retention. And you can see the number there. And then we brought into that what our new student goal numbers would be. And that was a combination of taking a look at what had happened in the past, what we felt like we had the potential for, where we would have empty seats within the classrooms, and we worked to creating goals. And we were able to work, and they actually exceeded this goal. This is a very minimal goal that they had put in place. They just wanted to turn around the decline in that first year and be able to see some growth, and they were actually able to grow above the 1,000 students in the first year of implementing this plan. So it's key to have goals, but it's also key to have an enrollment dashboard report that gives you the opportunity to track what's happening in your enrollment and marketing effort. This is a standard dashboard report that I'll use with the schools I'm working with, and I'm glad to send you this. If you want to email me separately, I can send you an Excel spreadsheet on this. But it tracks your re-enrollment, it tracks your new students, all the levels of the admissions funnel, looks at the total numbers and in light of our goals, and then how many more students we need. So it's in a simple dashboard report that you and your leadership team at your school can look at to review on a weekly basis. Is what I'd recommend that you're running this report to see how you're doing, because enrollment does come down to numbers and how we're tracking, and we need to understand and analyze the trends along the way so that we can adjust our strategies. And as we look at that admissions funnel, we can determine if we need to adjust our inquiry generation strategy or our campus visit strategy or whatever point in that funnel that we're looking at. Number 5, devote resources to the staff and the team. I think this is a key area. So as we look at the leadership of the school, providing that direction for where we need to head, in some schools, they're hiring an admissions or enrollment or marketing director for the first time. And this is an example here in Iowa City. So Regina Catholic School has been around for 56 years. They're a parochial school, and they have just relied upon the support from their local parishes and the Catholic families sending their kids to the school. Well, in the last several years, enrollment has slipped. And so that's got the attention of the leadership of the school, and now they have invested into their first full-time director of admissions, which is, I think, a great move, to have that staff person to be able to implement the strategies that we're talking about. Now, you might be in a situation at your school where you already have staff in place. So it could be an assessment of the effectiveness of the strategies that you're implementing. Maybe it means that you need to invest in an additional support person. Sometimes we have to take those risks in order to see the rewards. It's like a business not having a salesperson. Schools need to have someone who's leading that effort, that charge for the enrollment and marketing effort. And certainly it's a team approach involving lots of different people, and you can look down the responsibilities of that enrollment director, and this is just a snapshot, but you want someone who's going to lead the charge in implementing the strategies that will make a difference, but also to get everybody else involved. So you look at your faculty and staff, they're key members of the recruitment and retention team at your school. Based upon what they do in the classroom, how they deal with prospective parents as they're visiting campus, when they're interacting with parents along the way. So they have and play a significant role in this process, and that director of admissions or director of enrollment can lead that effort. So I'm a believer in this organization, SSATB, and their investment in admissions professionals, because that's how I started my career. And I go back to my early days as an admissions counselor at the university where I graduated from, and it was a great opportunity for me to grow and develop and understand that this is a wonderful profession to be a part of, and that I could play a role in making a difference in the places that I was placed. So as we look at it, number 6, I think, is a key strategy, launching a parent ambassador program. And it's been key to some of the schools that I've worked with that have been in decline, that have wanted to turn around that enrollment, is to be able to reach out to parents and enlist a group of parent volunteers to help you in your enrollment and marketing effort. I talk a lot about this in my word-of-mouth marketing conversations. I think the key part is to think about recognizing the right talkers who can be part of your parent ambassador team. You're looking for someone who has the passion for your school, they have credibility, they have connections, they want to be involved. You don't necessarily want to put out an announcement to all your parents and let anybody who wants to be a parent ambassador to sign up, because you may not get the right people. So I'm talking specifically in this case where you would actively recruit a team. Let me give you an example. So Covenant Classical School in Fort Worth, Texas. I started working with them a year ago. They're a small school, 250 students, and newer in their history. I think they'd have only been around about 12 years, and really had reached a kind of a stagnant point in growth, and really needed to infuse effort and energy into that. One of the good things that they had going for them is that they were involved in a new building, new facility for their high school. So that was great momentum that they were creating. So what we did is we worked to implement a parent ambassador program at their school. And what the head of school and the admissions director did is they targeted 25 parents out of their school that they could recruit, that could be part of this group. They invited them to go to a meeting, an initial meeting. I think it was at the home of one of the parents, where they had a kind of a cookout, Texas style, because that's where they're located, and gave the opportunity for the head of school and the admissions director to cast the vision for their parent ambassador program. And basically what they said is that we need to continue to rely upon parents to help us reaching out to the community. And so by starting this group of parent ambassadors, we would have a team, and you all would be our team of go-to parents to help us be able to best reach out to the community. And they walked through this list of different ways that they could help in the effort of being a parent ambassador for the school. And they didn't overwhelm them by saying you have to do everything on this list, but choose an area where you can focus in on. And they also were able to select some new parents, because new parents could be a great part of their parent ambassador program because they had this new love and energy for their school. And so they cast the vision for what a parent ambassador could do one of the things they shared with them is, the Out-of-Door Academy's idea of providing a list of their parent ambassadors. So every parent ambassador could be part of this list, and that could go out to all of their prospective parents. They wanted some of the parent ambassadors to help them reach out to their feeder schools. They have the connections, they know parents at those schools, so how can we best profile the school and reach out to those parents in those feeder schools? They're a faith-based school, so reaching out to churches. They use some of those parent ambassadors to be a church ambassador, to clearly be the one responsible for thinking about how to profile the school to people they see every week in their church, and being able to invite them to come to campus for an open house or a tour. Maybe it's to come to a neighborhood meeting in their home where they could spearhead that effort and maybe offer dessert and coffee in their home and have an opportunity for the head of school to be able to share about their school. The whole point in all of this is really to think about the different areas that we're naturally trying to connect to and how we're reaching out, and using the parents to help us in that effort. They have connections. They have the interest and the ability. And you think about it, an admissions director who could exponentially expand their reach with having 25 other people on board, and also to be an online advocate, whether it's on Facebook or one of the school review sites. In fact, one of the things that parent ambassadors can do is to go and write reviews for us online so that we can have the latest and greatest positive recommendations about the school, or being an internal advocate for the school, dealing with some of the maybe the negativity that comes along in being in a school environment from time to time, to help to reinforce the positives that are going on. So Covenant Classical cast that vision. They had 25 parents who became part of this group, and they were a catalyst for their enrollment growth. They grew by about 15% in the first year of this program. And if you were talking to the head of school, Eric Cook, he would say that it was a key ingredient toward their success in their enrollment and marketing effort. There's lots of tools, too, that you could give them to help you along that they could use to help promote and profile the school and the community. Number 7, consistently follow up with prospective students. It seems like a no-brainer, but I'm still surprised as I go into schools that take the wait-and-see approach, where they have someone call into the office, they talk to them, they send them a packet, and then they wait and see what's going to happen. The whole point, I think, is to have a follow-up plan. The key is to have one. So to think about, what is your follow-up plan when someone calls us or submits a web inquiry? What are we going to do? So I suggest a 30-day follow-up plan. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but you're making that initial contact, you're sending them information, everything's personalized. Step 3, you're calling them 1 week later, you're keeping in contact with them, trying to move them to that next step down your admissions funnel. Step 4, sending them something. Could be a postcard, it could be an email, it could be an infographic. Whatever it is, we want to keep your school in front of them. And then step 5, it could be a contact from that parent ambassador. Maybe they're sending them an email to introduce themselves so that they have a potential contact. Step 6 could be a final step in the sequence that focuses in on affordability of how's the parent going to make this tuition happen at the school. Again, the key is to have a plan and an approach, and then not to just finish the 30-day plan and then end all contact, but we want to keep your school in front of these inquiries, not in an obnoxious used car salesman type of approach, but in a way to remind them of your school. And you can think about maybe your core messages that you want to send out. Maybe you develop an email sequence that you could be sending them over time that could help to reinforce who you are. Maybe it integrates some personal testimonials and stories along the way. Number 8, re-recruit your current families. So once they're enrolled, it doesn't mean that they're going to be coming back. So our goal is to re-recruit them to come back for another year. And last year for SSATB, I gave a webinar on developing your recruitment plan. It's the essence of my my ebook that's out there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but our focus is we want to reinforce to our existing customers, and so to do some internal marketing to reinforce the value of why they decided on your school, as well as why they need to continue investing in your school. So we need to be proactive with them. For example, we can grade them on their likelihood to come back for another year, and we can use that as a way to identify those people who are on the fence that we can then reach out to, and typically they're going to fall into our transition grades, but also to use our re-enrollment period where we're asking our families to sign up and sign those contracts for the next year, to use that as an internal marketing campaign to reinforce the value of continuing at your school. Number 9, which is tied into that, is implement a word-of-mouth marketing campaign. And I talk a lot about this in my blog post and in a webinar I also did for SSATB last year, because we want to create buzz. And the buzz that we're going to create is going to be coming out of or as a result of a great experience that we have at our schools. So again, that's the foundation. Strong retention, strong parent satisfaction is going to lead towards that positive word of mouth into the community. I always go back to Andy Cernovich's book on word of mouth marketing and his 5 T's of word of mouth marketing. And you see those listed here on your screen. It's a great framework for creating your word of mouth marketing plan. In fact, if any of you are going to be at NAIS next week, I'm going to be leading a workshop with Shannon Drosky and Laura Murphy from the Out-of-Door Academy in Sarasota, Florida. And we're going to be talking about, actually they're going to do most of the talking and share with you all how they implemented their word-of-mouth marketing campaign and how it ties into these 5 T's. I think it's a great framework that schools can use to guide them in actually putting together, developing a word-of-mouth marketing campaign. Here's a couple examples. Back to Lakeland Christian School. So they created their campaign, Love Your School Out Loud, and you see how they somewhat teased it out on Facebook, asking the question, do you love LCS? More details coming soon. At their back-to-school night, they introduced the concept of everyone can be an LCS talker for our school. They handed out this sheet asking parents to love your school out loud. So what they were doing is they're trying to facilitate the parents to be able to be word-of-mouth marketers or talkers in the community. And they basically explained to them that in their everyday conversations that they have, they can use those as opportunities to be able to talk and share about the school. Through their Welcome Wednesday program, which is their monthly open house program that they have, one of the things that they did is they offer a packet of cards that they give to every parent in the school that they can use as a way, as the tool, to give to a friend to invite them to come to one of their open house events. So it's part of their campaign. It's a tool that they can use in their word-of-mouth marketing effort to share and spread that love into the community. I mentioned the Out-of-Door Academy. So I think they have a great campaign, and they call their campaign Pass It On. And if you go to their website, you can find their video, the Pass It On video. Their website address is oda.edu. Again, that's oda.edu. And it's one of the best videos that I've ever seen a school do. And Shannon will talk about that next week at NAIS. And she will say that her goal in creating this video as a marketing director was to do something different and unique, and it is that. There's no narration to the video at all. It's not your standard piece that talks about the school being founded 50 years ago, or offering this college prep education or whatever. It goes from image to image, showing an overview of the school, and it's very emotionally compelling. You have to watch it to see it, and it does a great job. Her goal was to make mothers cry, and that's what happened. When they showed it at their school, there were lots of tears. So you want to create this emotionally compelling piece And they did that as part of their campaign. And they've done lots of other things, but this has been a key piece for them. Fort Worth Academy, another school I'm working with in, obviously, Fort Worth, a school of about 210 students, independent school. And what they've been doing through their marketing director is they created a campaign called An Incredible School. They want everybody to be talking about how Fort Worth Academy is such an incredible school. And why wouldn't any of us want, that conversation to be taking place? So it's kind of like taking the obvious and putting it out there and asking people to think about and talk about how Fort Worth Academy is an incredible school. They ask all their parents, the question, why is Fort Worth Academy an incredible school? And they had them provide their reasons for that. They asked every student in the school this question as part of a class time activity. They gave them a blank piece of paper, and they asked the question, why is Fort Worth Academy an incredible school? And so the older students, they wrote out their reasons. The younger students drew pictures. And so they collected all these, and they've been using them on Facebook as part of their word-of-mouth marketing campaign to get this message out in a way that just reinforces this is why people are saying this is an incredible school. And so you see some of the examples here. It could be an older student's testimonial. It could be a younger student's talking about that this is the school I dreamed about. And so, cute little picture that she, drew, and you're able to get that out and share it, through on social media and so forth. So great way to do that. They just launched their new video, which is a great video. You can find that off their homepage of their website as you would Google that. And it really talks about how incredible this school is. So we want to get that message out there. Number 10, focus your resources on your website. So obviously your website is the hub of everything that you want to do online. So to focus in on having a quality website, strong brand, strong photos, but don't forget the content. We need to be communicating who we are in words, in stories is critical. I love the Emma Willard School website, and I talked about that in my blog because I think it brings to life, the girls at their school. It talks about, their I Am Emma campaign and profiles their different girls at their school. And to me, if I was a parent looking at this school for my daughter, or if I, was the daughter of my, if I was looking at this school and I was going there, I'd want to see, real life. And that's what I'm seeing through these girls and their stories that they had to share. And it just brings to life, the essence of the school in more of a story type of format. It helps you think about how you might potentially connect there. And they do some other creative ways of sharing, what do you want to know about the school with their top 20 countdown list. So that's an example of a high-quality website, and I see that as an area where you need to continually invest in, and then also use a blog as part of your website to communicate and drive traffic. Because as you can see in this chart here, blogs can increase and drive traffic to your website, and that's what we want. So Northside Christian Academy, I mentioned this school that I've been working with that's seen that dramatic enrollment turnaround. So they invested in some new website enhancements. A blog is part of that, and they've been investing in communicating key content that might help to drive traffic to their website because they post this out on social media. So they're thinking about or writing about topics, the unique role of athletics at our Christian school. They even produced an ebook. They have 6 ways to prepare your child for kindergarten. So helpful content, thinking about that prospective parent as they might be searching out there online for ways to prepare their child for kindergarten. And they have this ebook on why choose Christian education. So their thought is that there may be a parent that's thinking about enrolling their child in a Christian school, and so they're producing this ebook in hopes that people are going to find the school, and then that could be a lead generation tool for them along the way. And you can find that off of their website if you want an example of that. Number 11, generate leads through online marketing strategies. So some of this, again, is obvious, but it's been a key part of that strategy of turnaround and declining enrollments. Investing in search engine optimization, some pay-per-click ads, social media, online directories, and reviews. So the key is to make sure that if a prospective parent is searching on keyword terms like private schools in Memphis or Atlanta, that you're going to show up on the first page. And my recommendation along the way is that it's usually best to hire someone who knows what they're doing to do this for you, so that they can focus in on some of the key search engine optimization strategies that can make a difference in whether or not your school can be found. So there's a lot more that we could go into, but I want you to understand that that's I think a key foundational strategy, so that when people are doing searches like private school in St. Petersburg, Florida, what's going to show up, you're going to have some ads, and those are the pay-per-click strategies that will show up at the top or on the sidebar here, and then the organic search listings are going to show up below there. So some schools take the approach of, we want to show up, up here in some paid ads. That's going to drive some traffic. We want to also show up in some organic searches. But content needs to drive our effort on our website. So that's where we get into telling stories, testimonials, having fresh news updates, having a regular, consistent blog post. All those can contribute to being found online. I mean, that's my marketing strategy. So I write on my blog and I speak at webinars and conferences. That's how people find out about me. And a parent who is looking for a school, they're going to go to the web besides talking to a person, and you can help drive traffic to your website by having these strategies in place. This is an example of a landing page that we did for Indian Rocks Christian School to drive traffic as a result of their pay-per-click ad campaigns. So it's one thing to set up some ads on Google or other sites like that where you're paying for those ads, but to make sure that you're tying it into a landing page where you can provide some tracking. So Indian Rocks, one of the things that has been key to their growth has been this comprehensive online strategy, and part of it has been tied into their paid ad campaign and their landing pages. So they can go back and they can track how many people hit these landing pages, who completed the forms, and then how that ended up in yielding into enrollees at their school. Number 12, I have 2 more to go, and I'll finish on time. We'll have a little time for questions. Tell your school story on social media. Bottom line for me is this should be a core throughout your marketing effort, and I don't see a lot of schools doing this well. But you have a story to tell. Whether it's about your programs, your people at your school, the results that you're offering, we need to get those stories out. It's amazing to me how I can sit in a meeting at a school and they'll complain about the local newspaper not printing stories about our school, when we have the opportunity through our website and social media to tell any kind of story we want about our school. We can do that any time of the day. And so we have great stories to share, and we need to be sharing those. And this would be, I think, a key strategy towards working on turning around the decline at your school, or to any marketing strategy of any school, even if you're healthy. This should be a core strategy of communicating, the stories of the people who are part of your school. Maybe it's your grads or your faculty. You think about your faculty at your school. They're the stars of your school. You need to be profiling them and sharing their story. So I'm working with one school right now where we just sent around a survey of 5 or 6 questions to all the faculty in the school. We asked them to answer those questions, and we're going to use those as a story-based approach of highlighting who these people are on the website. We'll also get that out on Facebook. So we want people to know who the stars are at the school, the faculty and staff, and to use that, especially on social media and Facebook. From my research in the schools I work with, is still currently the #1 place where a parent would be going. Our goal is to capture the moment when it's happening at our school. It's like this photo here of my odometer. I was driving my car back from Orlando from one of our mini trips to Disney. My kids are in the back seat, and I see the odometer hit 99999. And I was like, hey, Caleb and Benjamin, you got to look at my odometer because we're going to go experience a significant moment when it rolls over to 100,000. It's only going to happen once in the lifetime of my car. And so they're looking over. I pull out my iPhone, I snap a photo of this, kind of breaking the speed limit a little bit there, because I think it was 70. So that's captured in this moment. But I get that odometer change to 100,000. Well, I had to be there to capture that moment. Just like the middle school principal of Lakeland Christian had to be there on Election Day, November 4th of last year, as the students were gathered around the flagpole, and they were praying for their country. And so you see the power of that particular post. It wasn't planned as a marketing, capture this big photo shoot and we're going to get it out there. It just happened because someone was there to capture that photo. They were able to put it out on Facebook, and you see the amount of activity that it got. So I think that's a huge focus for us in telling our story, is to capture that moment. So if we're looking at our Facebook pages, it captures the moment of what's happening in our schools, and it tells the story so that I can look down through a page like Miami Country Day and I can see, the different aspects of student life, and because we never know who's peering into our schools and seeing what's happening, and they may be intrigued by what they see and then choose to take the next step. There's creative things that we can do, like Canterbury School. They did a contest for summer vacation, asking them to take a photo of them wherever they're at around the world on their vacation or their service trip with a Canterbury shirt or sign, and you can see all the different interesting posts. I love this one here, the underwater post of the two kids with the Canterbury license plate. We've used a countdown toward the start of school where we had students holding up signs with how many days before school starts, just as a way to create some different photos and messages that we wanted to send out on Facebook to get different people involved in the community. And number 13, aggressively use financial aid. So the assumption is that if your enrollment's declining, you have empty seats in your classroom. So the likelihood of you being able to fill some of those seats is good, in the effort of being able to offer some financial aid to families to attract them to your school. And as a result, you're not going to have to hire additional faculty or staff, typically, if you have those empty seats. So back to Indian Rocks Christian again. They implemented a different approach for their tuition and financial aid process. They called it variable tuition. This is actually modeled after Marin Country Day out in the San Francisco Bay Area, where they have a program called index tuition. And so the whole financial aid concept has gone away with these schools, and it's been communicated in this model of index tuition, or at Indian Rocks Christian variable tuition, which basically says that here's our full price at our school. If you can't pay our full price, we have our variable tuition program. So in a way, it's a different way to market financial aid and be able to talk about how much you can afford to pay based upon the financial aid process. And that's essentially what they would go through so that they could arrive at a new tuition rate. So Indian Rocks Christian was very aggressive in their approach. They're located in St. Petersburg, school around 700 students. They were able to grow by 100 students in 1 year. They had empty seats in the classroom. They were focused in on the revenue that could be brought into the school rather than looking at financial aid as an expense. They were looking at it as, if this family can bring in 50% revenue or 60% revenue of full tuition, I'm better off having that family in the seat and having the revenue into the school than I am having that empty seat. And so that was an aggressive strategy that they put in place. And I've seen this in some other schools. In fact, on Friday of last week, I was interviewed by a writer from the New York Times who has an article that he'll be publishing this coming weekend on this topic. And so you can Google index tuition. You can see examples of schools that are doing this. Sliding scale is another approach that some schools use. It may or may not be the right approach for you, but Indian Rocks Christian found success in it. I have another school in Virginia that I'm working with that is implementing this strategy. But the whole point is, let's leverage financial aid, focus in on revenue to generate enrollment and maximize that to fill our empty seats at our schools. So that is the conclusion of this webinar, and I'm not sure what just happened to the last screen there, but I will turn it back over to Karen for any types of, or any questions that we have. I know this has been like a drinking from a fire hose type of webinar with, again, lots of strategies that we could spend an hour on each. But I wanted to give you an overview of what I felt like were some of the most important ones that can benefit a school that's experiencing decline. So Karen?
Hey Rick, thank you so much. That was really informational. We do have several questions here. I want to remind everyone that we are recording this webinar, and I will post it on admission.org and send all registrants a link to the webinar page. Rick has also agreed to send me his slide deck, so we will post that as well, including that chart that several of you had asked about. Rick, the first question comes from Mara. She's asking kind of a nuts and bolts question about the blogging. She wants to know who does the blogging on a school website.
I think one of the best approaches is that you establish a team that's going to lead the charge on the blogging rather than have a head of school blog, because when it's focused in on one person, then that person can either do a great job or a poor job. And so if you have a team, you know, and it depends on the size of the school and your resources and all that, but maybe it's 2 or 3 people that can think about the strategy, the content, and then you can enlist others to help you with blog posts along the way. So there's not just, again, relying upon one person, but it does need to go through one person because that is, in a sense, the voice of the school. But I would take that approach and getting other people to help you with that, but having one person or a team being able to spearhead that effort.
Okay, so you're talking about basically like recruiting them maybe from other areas, even if you have teachers or administrators, not necessarily, they don't necessarily have to be in the admission office, correct?
Yeah, right, exactly. So let's say, for example, you want to write a blog post on how to raise kids in a digital age. That's an important, relevant topic for current parents and prospective parents. So maybe the computer teacher, the IT director, they collaborate in writing a blog post on that topic, and they come up with 5 key strategies for how to raise kids in a digital age. And then you're able to use their content, maybe do some editing, and post it on your blog.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
That's what I would do. I would enlist the help of others. Yep.
Very good. Jesse's asking how you would advise a boarding school which has students from 39 states and 32 countries to implement a parent ambassador program.
Yeah, I'm assuming you have a day program as well, so I would see you having a parent ambassador program for day program, and then you could also use parents to be able to help you as you're reaching out to those communities in those other states. So maybe you're identifying parents from those particular states or regions that can help you, because you can't be everywhere in these 39 states that you're representing or that are represented in your school. So you could have different parents who are coming from those areas that can help you be an ambassador for your school, maybe in their state. So they could identify with another parent who is in Texas that is looking at your boarding school by communicating with this prospective parent that this is something that I was able to walk through as a prospective parent, about sending my kid away to a boarding school, and being in the same state, I'll have that connection and affinity with them. So that's at least one potential model that I could see coming up, and then they can help you, as you have, inquiries that come into your school from your website, and helping you in that follow-up process. So you could have these regional or state ambassadors for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Susan is asking,
Sure.
she says, a lot of your strategies rely on an existing network, parents, alums, teachers, etc. I'm working for a new boarding school that will be opening in fall of 2014. What do you suggest, aside from inbound marketing and financial aid, for recruiting an inaugural class in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, well, a couple thoughts. You're going to have key stakeholders that are helping with the establishment of the school that can be some word-of-mouth ambassadors for your school. But I do think the inbound marketing approach is that key strategy, profiling your school on the web and having an active presence of social media to be able to generate some interest in your school, because you're creating interest from scratch. So that's a little bit different than the target of our conversation today, looking at schools that have declined in enrollment and trying to turn that around. You're actually trying to grow it from the ground up. So a little bit different situation. I'm glad to think about that a little bit more. If you want to dialogue with me specifically on that, if you have a website, I'd be glad to take a look at that. So glad to offer my time to be able to help you think about that situation. But good question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rick. We're at 4:05 now, and I don't have any additional questions at this point. I would like to thank our audience for tuning in, and a special thank you to Rick for providing us with this insightful webinar. Once again, a reminder, a recording of this presentation will be made available on the webinar page in the professional development section of admission.org. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.